So the plan is, which is what I'm assuming VLs have, is you cut a slit here all the way through this tank and you put a divider. So what it does, it fills the top, forces it all the way over to the other, drop, back out. If that makes sense. Effectively making it a dual pass radiator. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to pull all this out because I know everything fits now. I'm going to cut a slit and we're going to put some alloy between it, and I'm going to get Troy to weld that up, and then the radiator's finished and can go back in for good. So lucky enough, Bunnings do this alloy strip that is the exact width of the end tank, 50mm. So all I'm going to do is cut a section, whatever the width of the tank is, cut a slot. I'm hoping my grinding disc is this thick, that way you can just do a slot and this will slip in, and then you literally just do a weld, 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 and you've got a dual pass radiator. So it'll fill up to here, force the water over to the other tank, it'll fill the bottom, and then force it over to this side and back out. So that's the slit done. Now I got this to fit really, really snug. Like so. So that's it. So that'll force the water this way, in the other tank, and then back out and out the bottom. Easy. Simple fix. So I filed this down all nice to go with the contour of the tank. Super satisfactory when something comes out really good like that. So I'm going to drop to Troy at PP next week. Hopefully he can weld it up same day. Possibly paint it black, I'm not sure yet. Maybe just the tanks, maybe the whole thing, don't know. And that's it for the radiator. Should be fine. Never say never. So the plan was to get a tail shaft made, like to lengthen the V8 one that I had in, as I needed it to be longer to suit the Turbo 350 because it's shorter than the 4L60. Big thank you to Blake that messaged me on Facebook and gave me a lot of information about what other stuff sort of fits and what you can use from other cars, etc, etc. And he informed me that I most likely had a VN 5-litre tail shaft in it, as that meets up to an LS with a 4L60. But if I use a V6 auto sedan solid axle VN tail shaft, it should meet up to LS with a Turbo 350. So I got one from the wreckers. If it doesn't work, you know, nothing to lose. It was very, very cheap. So we're going to give this a shot and see if a stock V6 one will meet up to an LS with a Turbo 350. All right, I'm a bit skeptical. That is hanging out. It does go in. It does line up with the splines and slot in there, but that is a lot of free play. So what I've done is I've marked it here with a texter so I can pull it out and see actually how much is in the back of the transmission, and we'll go from there. So I think that one's definitely a bust. Only 48mm sits in the transmission. So more than half sits out, about 55 out. From what I've read online, there should be like 3/4 to an inch of play. So that's a lot more than an inch. I don't know. I'm skeptical. I think we're going to revisit the tail shaft later on. So one thing I've actually been really dreading starting, just because a bit of a stuff around and I'm being lazy, is doing all this fuel line stuff. So biting the bullet, and I'm going to start it now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swap some fittings around on this, because this is getting attached straight to the rail off the back end of it, instead of where it was before, mounted on Firewall. Just less hose and stuff like that, makes it look a bit neater. So we'll jump into doing that and see where it takes us from there. So there we go, mounted directly to the rail. That's actually a very tight fit. I think I'm going to have to do a 90 for this vacuum fitting. Actually, because NA, I think you don't even run vacuum, so that may be fine. We're actually doing a little bit of recycling here, so if you've ever done a lot of fittings on a car, you know that they are ridiculously expensive. Like, there's over $500 of fittings just here in this little pile. So when the fuel pressure reg used to be mounted here on the Firewall and it had a couple of lines going down to the factory hard lines, obviously there was some sections that were fittings and stuff. So even with, this is one of the old lines, and what we're doing is a couple of the fittings we can reuse, like the 90s, there's two 90s, two 45s, and even this little section of line I can just chop down, reuse the 90 off the fuel pressure reg, and make that into our crossover line. Trust me, if there's places where I can save money, I'm gonna do it. There we have it, our second-hand fittings and hose that came from the back is now our new front crossover. I said we would revisit the tail shaft in the near future, and well, now is the near future. So very quickly, I got a tail shaft done. So they have extended the front tube 40mm. So I had it marked here and I just told them, look, that's where it sits in the transmission, so do it to whatever you think is gonna fit best. So that's what they've done, 40mm was the magic number. So I'm gonna slide this back in and hopefully it fits. Woohoo, tail shaft is in. Fits up perfect. There's just under an inch of free play in and out, which is absolutely spot on perfect. That's it, tail shaft done. Now, as previously mentioned, we're gonna move these fuel lines here. So one is just a tank breather, which is the bottom one. The top one's a brake line, so it's just these two center ones. I'm gonna chop here before the turn. I'm gonna run them down this, down there, through the wheel well, and to two bulkhead fittings into the engine bay to get them away from here, from the exhaust. So now the painstaking part of getting those out, because the headers are right against them, and I had to go buy a very, very small pipe cutter so I can get in under there, under the car, one of these little things. So I'm gonna tackle that now. I thought I would give this little pipe cutter a test run first before filming it, because I thought 100% this cheap little tool is gonna stuff something up and I'm gonna look like an idiot as usual. But this little $15 pipe cutter works perfect. Perfect for under the car where you can only drop the line down a little bit. So literally just put it on the pipe where you want to cut it, tighten it, spin it around a few times, tighten it again, and it'll eventually cut, and break. Super simple. So now I'll do the other one. There you go, nice clean cut. So now I can pull, now I can pull all this out from the engine bay and run fittings from here straight up this way. So here's what I just pulled out. I actually had to cut it in sections again because it was just too snaked under the car to pull out through the engine bay. It made it a lot easier, just cut it again. And these are the fittings that were on these hard lines. So we're gonna do the exact same thing. I'm not gonna reuse them, as I'm told you can't reuse these olives, so you may as well just buy new fittings. So that's what I've done, the exact same straights that were on it. So what you do is you slip this on the hard line, then the olive seats inside that, and then the fitting seats on the other end of the olive, and you've got a fitting on the end of your hard line. So two of those where I just cut these off, with then straight fittings on the end and hose up into the wheel well. That's our fittings on the end of our hard lines, cut back so we can run it in a different spot. I've also got these bulkheads done, so they go through into the engine bay. So I need to make a line from those two to those two hard lines, and then one line from down there to the back of this rail, and the other one to the bottom of the fuel rig. Here we go, here's our finished product, our 4 fuel lines. So these are the 2 that are gonna go from the bulkhead to the hard lines, and these are the 2 from the bulkheads, 1 to the reg and 1 to the back of the fuel rail. My hands are killing me after doing all those fittings. I don't have a vise or anything, so I just had to sit here on the floor and do all these up. It was an absolute nightmare, and climb up into the engine bay, back out, in, out, getting the lengths right. So I'll put everything together and show you the finished product. And here is the finished product. So that's it, all the fuel stuff done. It's all nice and hidden, you can't see any of the fuel lines pretty much. What a killer that is with no vise. So just doing this with your hands, like starting them all by hand and just 2 spanners. Oh, my hands are killing me. And that's only like a small 2-line sort of fuel setup. So I'm happy that's all done, don't have to touch that again, everything's tight, mint. And no, before anyone asks, the wheel doesn't hit it on the ground, full lock to lock, nowhere near it with these skinny tires on the front. Now I'm still very determined to fit this Aeroflow catch can. Now the reason I'm determined to fit it is because I already have it, so I may as well use it. So the plan is I'm going to try and get it to fit somewhere here where the power steering pump used to be. What I'm thinking is just a flat bracket from top to bottom spaced out, so then you can put bolts through to this. Should be very, very simple. And this is what I've come up with. So just a straight bracket with 4 holes in it, bolt up the top, bolt down the bottom to bolt on the front of the head with some spaces. 2 here in the middle to go on the catch can. So we'll see how it fits up. I'm actually really, really happy with that. That's come out really good. It sits nice, doesn't hit anything. It's low enough to clear the bonnet. Super simple straight bracket to mount the catch can. And look at this. Spot on. Watch out, Daniel, I'm coming for you for the title of the King of the Straight Brackets. So I'm going to give that a coat of black paint so you can't really see it. And that's it, on to the next thing. Now, it may sound stupid to a lot of people that, you know, can fab and weld, you know, MIG, TIG, you know, blah, 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 blah. But doing something like that, like even just a little bracket that you make yourself, is so, so satisfying. So don't be afraid to try and make things yourself. Who cares if it doesn't work out? You chuck it in the bin and you can buy something off the shelf. But always try and give things a go yourself first. All right, next thing on the agenda is mounting this dipstick on the firewall somewhere. Now what I'm gonna do is actually nutsert this onto the firewall because it is a hell of a lot easier. So what a nutsert is these little inserts. So you drill a hole, whatever size, like for example, these are M6s, so drill an M6 hole. You screw this onto the end of this like a pop rivet gun, squeeze it, put tension on it, pop. It expands the back of these and locks the insert into the hole you've drilled, and these have thread inside. And super simple, so you don't need to put a nut on the back. We'll mount it up right in the center. Perfect. Now I think I'm going to use those nutserts to mount the Astra power steering pump thing in here as well, so that I don't have to run a bolt or anything like that inside here. Now we can move back onto the radiator again that you remember from the last 3 videos we've been doing this radiator. So as mentioned by a lot of people, we had to put a baffle in here, so we did that as you saw at the start of this video. It's now welded up by Troy, so it's got a baffle in it. So I think I'll give it a hit of black paint and we can put all this back in finally. I'm going to see if these thermos fit as well, because I'd rather not have to buy thermos, but because I'd rather use what I already have than doubling up on everything, but we'll see. Now I'm assuming there's going to be some people in the comments, as there always is. They would have run the fuel lines different. This is not everyone's cup of tea, which is fair enough. Not everyone's car's the same. The only other way I could think of doing the fuel lines to keep it away from headers and stuff and to get it into the engine bay would be to do a whole new system right from the tank and pretty much run it right up the center, like up the tunnel, and then up into the engine bay. That's the only other way I can think of it about doing it. But then you risk sort of stuff getting in the way of tail shaft and like diff with the suspension travel, and who knows. This seemed like the easiest way to do for me, so that's the route that I took. I have everything back together. Radiator is now black. OTR, everything's back in. I mounted that dipstick a little bit better. I wasn't happy with how I had it before. Leave you guys with some questions. What the hell did these go to? So they come out of the firewall, obviously from inside the car. No idea what they went to. Can I get rid of them? No idea how I'm gonna run the lines for this catch can. I see it sort of need to do a really sharp turn. I don't know. Both of them this way and up that side. No idea how I'm going to do this. They can't really go under here, which I would like. For this one anyway, to cross over to the other side. So, I don't know. Got some thinking to do with that. And, if I can get up here. So this is the fitting I had welded on this rocker cover.
obviously I can't get a fitting on it now, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. I might have to cut this plastic out, do something with this bracket, do a bit of chopping just to get a 90 on there so I can run the line down here. And also while I'm up here, you're not going to be able to see, but down there I can only just see the two fittings that come off the casing of the transmission for the oil cooler that's on the front. I cannot get to them from under the car. Like, the headers are that tight between the rail and the transmission that I can't get it from there. I can't get it from the back because the headers sit really tight up against the floor. Ugh. So I have no idea what I'm going to do there. I'm getting to those little bits at the end where they're just real fiddly and they're going to take a lot of time. All these little tiny things. Need to really get onto this. I'd love to have all this hooked up and ready to go. I just noticed before while I was under the car that a lot of this can go because this is all for the 4L60, but 202 sensors here, obviously. But only one side header has a spot for it, so I don't know what the go is there. I test fitted the old fans down in here and there is no chance in hell they're going to work. They do fit, but they're super close to water pump pulley, so I'm not happy with that. So I don't know what I'm going to do there. Figure out some new thermos. I don't know, that can be like a last thing. There's lots more to do before that, so these can pretty much go in the bin. They're that chopped up that they're sort of not even worth selling, so I think I'll just bin those. Also decided to dish this factory trim as it blocks a bit of the OTR, as you can see, so I want to get as much air into this thing as possible. It's a shame because, well, one, it's a good condition factory item that's supposed to be there, and two is it's really scratchy on the rad support here, which that trim piece hid all that, so oh well. I've got these dash 10 fittings just to test what angles are going to work, what's not going to work. So I've got here a 150 degree dash 10, which I reckon is perfect for there, like so, and then the hose can run up and through the center there. And I reckon probably the same. A 90 isn't enough. Maybe even a 120, probably another one of these. And then run both lines together down there. The only problem is, I got this 90, which just isn't gonna work here. You're sort of hitting, oh, it might work there, like just. I might need to shave down this bracket and run the line down there. And the other side, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do here. I need to get a dash 10 in there somehow. And most likely run it backwards, like that, and run them together to the front. And goddamn, these dash 10 fittings are so expensive. Yeah, lots of little fiddly things. I'd really love to do these transmission lines. Hope you can hear me over the rain. Really hard to get motivation today, being so cold and rainy. But anyway, I reckon next video I'm going to draw the winner for those bean bags as well, so everyone stay tuned for that. I think I'm going to stop working on the car, and that's probably going to be the end of this video because as you can see, this is not the ideal place and time to be working out here on the cars. It's dripping on my head. See you guys next week.